Hello, this is Angelia with today's wisdom. Today's wisdom comes from Daily Ohm, a life-altering decision. Divorce with grace. Now, divorce is something I know about. I've been divorced twice. I can't say it was necessarily with grace, because, there are emotions involved. And actually, my sons were joking about that yesterday. My husband kind of was getting smart with one of my sons, and he was like, I see why you've been divorced twice. He didn't care for that. But, this is what happens when you give people bad attitudes. Like the act of marriage that binds two people together, divorce is the result of a life-altering decision. And it is. And God did mean for us to be together, one man, one woman for life. But unfortunately, sometimes folks make it so that you can't live together. It's being a danger to yourself and others kind of constitutes, maybe that needs to be a situation, especially if you have children, that you need to remove the situation. So that has been why my two divorces happened. I don't want to get into my husband's dirty laundry too much, but I didn't feel very free to make my own decisions and had to live my own life in the first marriage. And there were things going on in the second that were not healthy or safe for me and my children. So I chose to divorce him, but, it hurts because you still love the person, but, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. It is the dissolving of a relationship that we believed would last our whole lives. And you do. When you get married, you think, this is going to be great. Me and my best friend, we're going to go out and we're going to conquer the world. We're going to, have this great life. And then when that doesn't happen, you're just, struck down, emotionally speaking. We may not even be able to articulate how we got to this place. Yet we may also feel we have no choice but to sever this tie. And like I said, if you're in any danger, if you're being abused in any way, you should step out. You should walk out and keep yourself safe, because the definition of insanity is being a danger to yourself and others. And if you're keeping yourself in that situation, also not mentally healthy. Whatever we feel, we need the support of the friends and family who will stand by us no matter what we decide. And some families are more supportive than others. I'm not going to get into that too much either, but sometimes families not willing to do the thing that you think is the right thing. And that has other consequences too. At some point, we may need to be challenged to look deeper inside ourselves as we make this very important decision. But what we need most of all is unconditional love and loyalty. So if you have a family member that's going through this, remember that. Love on them, be there for them, because everyone needs a little support sometimes. And, I had a friend who I thought was a good friend, and she did not give me love and support. What she gave me was, well, what did you do? There's always two sides of a story. What did you do to make this happen? And I was taken aback, and there were several girls that I went to school with who thought my husband was cute and good looking, and they were interested. So maybe there was some of that happening, but it definitely hurt my feelings that I told her what he was doing, and then she would ask me, what did I do? Because I was like, well, nothing. I was trying to stand up for my rights. So yeah, I probably said some stuff that he didn't like, but divorce is a process that, once in motion, becomes difficult to stop. And this can be painful if we find ourselves having second thoughts. Now, my father accused me of that the first time I got divorced. Are you having second thoughts? You were crying. I heard you crying. And it's like, I'm crying because, this marriage that I thought was going to be good, to my best friend. And then once we got married, he changed his attitude on some things. And it was all his insecurity, honestly. He wanted the control. He wanted to micromanage and run my life, and didn't want to let me do things, out in the public because he was afraid a man might talk to me and he might lose me. So, you know, men can be insecure just as women can be insecure. We may feel that we should do more to save the marriage. Or we may wonder if there is something about ourselves that we could fix or change instead of going through with this painful separation. And now, sometimes that's true. Sometimes we all carry baggage from our childhood, and sometimes we have attitudes that need a tweak. And if you go to couples counseling, you'll learn that. You'll learn how to fight fair, because sometimes, you know, you're, especially if your parents were punitive, you might hit below the belt and go places you don't need to necessarily go. You know, even if you think it in your head, it doesn't need to come out of your mouth, because it's not constructive, it's destructive. So, you know, and that's why we're talking about divorce with grace here. On the other hand, we may be seeing in hindsight that our marriage was truly only meant to last for a short time so that we could learn something we needed to know. And that could also be true. I know people who needed to learn something from being married to this type of person or that type of person, and, you know, they learned what they're not willing to take, you know, or what to look for the next time. And maybe, you know, they needed to learn a lesson because, like I say, God knows everything. We don't know everything. And sometimes we have to fall down before we can stand back up. Whatever the case, we need friends who will allow us to linger in confusion when we don't have the answers, and who will support us whether we find ways to reconcile and stay married or whether we walk away. And again, like I said, don't ask your friends. Well, you know, there's always two sides to a story. It takes two to tango. What did you do? You know, don't do that to your friends. If you're their friend, you're supposed to be supportive and loyal to them, right? You know, if that's what you got going on, you probably got some designs on the ex already. One of my friends actually called me after my divorce. Do you mind if I ask him out? And I'm like, no, go ahead and ask him out. But here's the deal. Remember, I was his high school sweetheart, and we were best friends, and he supposedly loved me to the moon and back. And this is how he treated me. So how's he going to treat you? Think about that before you go out with him. And she never did. And I think she regretted that decision even later, because later on she told some people that she was going to steal my husband and family from me. That didn't happen, thank goodness. But, you know, people are weird. They get their own motivations for things they do. Of course, the most essential ally we have lives inside our hearts and speaks to us from within, because you know, in your heart, you know. It's like, if you love a person, you can love that person and still hate things about that person in the same time. There's a word, love-hate relationship. It's a real thing, because you can love the person, but you can hate things about them. And that's where, you know, some cognizant dissonance comes in, and you got to figure out, weigh the pros and cons. Is it more better or more worse? You know, you got to decide for yourself. We can trust this inner guide to help us choose people who will support us in kind and loving ways as we navigate the rough terrain of confusion and loss. That's something I'll say about my husband. He's always been there to support me. Even when we were divorced, if I had a problem and he heard about it, he wanted to come help. If I needed some money for something, if he heard about it, he wanted to come help. So he's always been supportive. That's not one of his problems. You know, now kind and loving, okay, you know, because he had a very punitive lecturing type of mother, he wants to tend to do that, and that's not constructive either. You know, and if you're gonna kind of act like you hate me, that doesn't show me very much love. So, you know, there's always room for improvement. Sometimes all we can do is look to the horizon, remembering that we will get through this, and no matter what happens, we will once again feel whole. And, you know, my second divorce, we were apart for 8 years. And, at one point, my son had talked me into computer dating. And it's like, there's no men my age who are decent guys. Because, like I joked, well, all the good ones are married, and they stayed married because they were good ones. And all I was finding was these narcissistic, sociopathic people, like, if you want to date me, you have to do this, that, the other thing. And I'm like, really? But then I don't want to date you. And then there was a couple widowers, but the one who was interested insisted that I had to convert to Catholicism because he was a devout Catholic. And I'm like, you know what? I was born that way, and I don't agree with everything that they agree with, so I can't do that. And he's like, well, then we can't be together. I'm like, well, if that's your belief, that's fine. We won't be together. So, you need to find someone who you're compatible with. My advice is to look for a good, thoughtful, loving, decent person. If you start seeing things when you're dating, it says maybe they're a bad person. Maybe they're ignorant. Maybe they're hateful. Maybe they're indecent. Don't brush those away. That's something letting you know, maybe not. So, try, if you're going to go through a divorce, to do it with a little grace. That's going to be hard to do, I know, because it is a life-altering decision. But, sometimes when you, are away from this person, then you can be who you want to be, and not have to live up to, a role that this person is assigning you. And that can be very freeing. Think about it. Please like and share this wisdom so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. Until next time.